Now that I've finished the main story of Sacred Stones, I just thought I'd give an updates video as to what's going to be happening on the channel going forward. Firstly, I just want to point out that Sacred Stones is not completely done yet. I still need to do the Tower of Valni, the Lagdo Ruins, and some bonus episodes showing off some glitches, a few other things. I may even do a few videos on the prototype version if I can find a good way to record that. That one requires an emulator, and applying a patch to a normal Sacred Stones ROM. It's also entirely in Japanese. But thankfully I understand enough of it to be able to walk you through most of the menus. I find the prototype might be a bit of a fun thing to show off. As for the other footage, I did promise that I'd be doing the Tower of Valni with a B team. Basically show off some characters who I didn't really use during the main playthrough. It might take me a little while to grind them all up to the level that I feel like I can take on the whole tower with them. I kind of want to get them all to 1 promoted, and I think I do probably have enough promotion items counting those Master Seals. So there might be a little bit of a delay before I start uploading those. Ironically, the Lagdo Ruins is going to be easier because I can just throw in my main story team straight off the bat. That's everything that I wanted to say about Sacred Stones, but the real question is, what's next? And weirdly enough, I'm actually not entirely sure. Now, I know that I probably will be recording Persona 3 FES The Answer. I will probably be uploading this. I just never really considered The Answer to be a main project, more like an extension of another project. So I kind of want to do something else while I'm uploading The Answer. What that something else is, I have a few ideas, but I haven't quite decided on anything definite yet, so I might actually like some input here. One that I want to get out of the way first, though, Heirs of Fate. I get a lot of people asking me about Heirs of Fate. It is something that I might do eventually. It's just that, as I've said before, the whole fandom situation regarding Fates has just deteriorated to the point where I really don't look forward to seeing what the comments are going to be like on those videos, so I'm not too keen to actually do that. There's also the fact that Heirs of Fate stars one of my least favourite characters in all of Fate, so it's a little hard for me to get excited about it. So this is probably not going to be the next thing I do. Now on to my actual considerations. The first one is Metroid Fusion 1% Challenge. It's been almost exactly a year since I got bored while on a domestic plane flight and started up a 1% run of Metroid Fusion on my 3DS. And although it was very difficult and resulted in many dead Samuses, I had a lot of fun. I normally go for 100% runs in Metroid games, but doing the exact opposite was just as fun to me. But for entirely different reasons, and of all the Metroid games to do a low percent challenge on, Fusion is the one that I probably want. I have tried in my own time a 1% run, well, it's not 1% because plot required items add percentage in that game, the lowest possible percent run of Zero Mission as well. I didn't really enjoy that one as much, primarily due to the lack of bosses. Also, since missiles were your only real source of damage against bosses in that game, unlike Fusion's very strong charge beam, boss battles came down less to an epic battle of reflexes, and more down to farming for item drops from destroying their projectiles repeatedly. It really wasn't all that fun of an experience for me. And I actually quit at the Mother Brain fight. Fusion, on the other hand, I find to be incredibly fun on a challenge playthrough just because of the sheer number of bosses and just how good I find the combat in that game. And the release of Metroid Samus Returns is actually quite close, so now would be a pretty good time to do this. There are a couple of issues, however. The first is I would definitely be doing this playthrough as post-commentary. Some of the more difficult bosses in a run like this, like Nightmare, can take me hundreds upon hundreds of attempts. There is no way my sanity would survive having to redo my commentary that many times. It would also mean uploads would be fairly sporadic. I would not be able to keep up a consistent schedule because some bosses, yeah, I can get stuck on them for weeks. But the one issue that kind of puts me off doing this the most is the Metroid fanbase. I know that I deal with the Fire Emblem fanbase on a regular basis, so people would think that I'm accustomed to this kind of thing, but to be honest, I find dealing with the Metroid fanbase even worse. It comes from the fact they've had so little in the way of anything positive to talk about regarding the series for a long time. But I found a lot of comment sections on Metroid videos over the last several years to be very unpleasant to read through. It also really doesn't help that Fusion is directly tied to the most controversial game in the series plot-wise. So I can't just ignore it. Inevitably, discussion of that game is going to turn up, and I really don't want that kind of ugliness in my comment sections. I'll just say, for the record, I actually didn't think Other M was a bad game, gameplay-wise. I understand why people hate on its story and everything else to do with it, but I felt that its gameplay wasn't bad. But the very fact that I even think that automatically paints a big target on my head. I feel like if I did do this, I might wait until after Samus Returns gets released, just to see if that game is well received or not, because if it isn't, I dread to think of the sheer storm that will happen in the fanbase, and I'd like to be as far away from that as possible. So, next idea I had. For some reason, I've been feeling like doing something Pokémon related lately. It's another series I love, and yet I haven't really done much involving it for a while. Now, I do know that my Pokémon videos traditionally have had very, very low view counts. Probably due to the fact that YouTube is already saturated with Pokémon stuff anyway. The big PokeTubers are pretty much entrenched in their positions right now, to the point where it's impossible for anybody else to break into that market. But I still really enjoy the series, I have insane knowledge of it. I would really love to do another Pokemon playthrough soon. And while there is always the possibility of at the end of the year maybe doing a blind playthrough of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, again, that's something that pretty much everyone and their mother is going to be doing at the time. Also, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, I feel like I'd rather wait a little bit after their release before I think about buying them for myself. I want to see just how different they are from the original Sun and Moon, because I'm a bit worried about the fact they're releasing a new one just a year after the previous one. They've never done this before, so I'm worried about a lack of new content. Anyway though, I have two main ideas for a possible Pokemon series that I could do soon. The first is Pokemon Heart Gold or Soul Silver No Experience. Now, I don't know how many of you on my channel now know about my Pokemon Black No Experience playthrough. This was a run of Pokemon Black, my personal favourite game in the series, and it actually still is, but played with its anti-piracy measures on, so that your Pokemon never gain experience from battles. I found it to be quite a fun challenge, and one that you don't see very often here on YouTube. It seems to be pretty much all Nuzlockes and variants. The only no experience playthrough that I had seen before was from Moogle Boss, and they only showed boss fights, not the entire game. I actually really enjoyed my no experience run of Black, despite the low view counts. And it was something that I definitely wanted to continue. Now, Pokemon Black 2 also has the same anti-piracy measures, so it's the only other game that you can quote-unquote officially do a no-experience challenge of. But, through some clever use of GameShark codes, I have found a way to reduce experience gain in Heart Gold and Soul Silver to nothing. Why Heart Gold and Soul Silver? Well, firstly, they're re-releasing Gold and Silver on Virtual Console quite soon, and secondly, those are probably still my second favourite games in the series, so it's another game that I really have a lot of good things to say about it, a game that I really enjoy personally, and this might put a new spin on it. Johto is a notoriously easy region, and I'm wondering just how challenging it's going to get with Pokemon never being able to gain experience. Essentially, you just have to use wild Pokemon at the levels you catch them at. I'd make a few restrictions, such as no Suicune, Raikou, or Entei before the Pokemon League, maybe. And also no daycare, because the daycare actually will still level up your Pokemon in these runs. Another rule would be no looking up any videos or strategies of other people who've done this kind of challenge online. I have to come up with all the strategies for all the fights myself. So this could prove to be potentially interesting, although another issue is, I'm not sure how I go about doing this commentary-wise. I've never been able to do live commentary on an emulator recording before. I could look into OBS, but from what I've seen of other people using it, it does tend to be a bit laggy sometimes. Failing that, I can just record off of the system itself and do post-commentary. And for those wondering, no, I cannot record this off of an actual DS system, because I don't have a physical Game Shark, and even if I did, I would never want to use it on one of my actual games. So that's one option Pokemon-wise. Here's the other option. Several years back, in 2012, I started recording a playthrough of Pokémon Colosseum to celebrate the then-upcoming release of Pokémon X and Y. I had made bios for it, and I'd recorded the entire main storyline when I discovered that a certain super famous YouTuber happened to be doing Pokémon Colosseum at the exact same time I was. I knew that if I did start doing the series, I would immediately meet with comparisons to that guy, and nothing against the man himself, he's actually pretty nice to lesser known LPers. But I found that at the time, a lot of his fanbase could be very vicious towards other people who LP'd the same games he did, and a lot of them acted like if he LP'd something, nobody else was allowed to. Because of this, I scrapped the entire project and eventually did Pokemon Black 2 No Experience instead. However, I've recently unearthed an old USB hard drive that contains all of the videos that I recorded for Pokemon Colosseum. And it would be a shame for those all to go to waste. So the other consideration is reviving my playthrough of Pokémon Colosseum by doing post-commentary on those videos. Yes, it would be post-commentary. Back then, I wasn't even able to do live commentary on TV capture card recordings. And while I could restart the game and actually record it all live again, I feel like I could get a lot of entertainment value out of my present self questioning my 2012 past self's decisions at various points in the game. I've watched a few of them over just to see what they're like, and I admit that I did item spam a lot more than I'd probably be comfortable with now. Also, the footage may be a bit dark at points. My old capture card, for some reason, had kinda bad brightness settings, so a lot of the time, games would come out quite dark. Also, the audio quality is a tiny bit crackly sometimes. It's not really bad, but it's not perfect. I would also have to make all the Pokemon bios again, so that may take a while, because I've long since deleted the old PowerPoint I had with them. One advantage to doing this playthrough, that's why I've really considered it, is that I've already recorded all of the videos in the main story. All I would need to do is find some time to post-commentate on them. Which means this would be a great series to have going on in the background while I'm working on something else, because it would take a lot of pressure off of me. All the video footage that I need is already here. One thing that I do want to improve on in the coming months, and something that has really annoyed me, is that lately, I haven't been able to record very much on weekends, and because of that, uploads tend to stop then. This is due to me having to help with a lot of family things in real life at the moment, so most of my weekends are just far too busy to actually get to recording. But, if I had a series like this that's already fully recorded, all I need to do is just take about 20 to 30 minutes every day post-commentating on an episode, and that's all I need to get an upload ready. It'd be nice to actually have backlog videos ready to go on weekends again, so this would probably be the easiest series to do with regards to that. There is one other potential series, but I'm kind of considering it a bit less than the other three, and that's because I haven't played this game in a long time, so I'd need to replay it to just research everything and make sure I actually know where I'm going. But this game is another, I guess, semi-shorter project that I'd like to cover at some point. The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages. This was my first Zelda game. Actually, it was my sister's first Zelda game, it wasn't even technically mine. But it is a game from my childhood that I have a lot of stories to talk about. I was thinking to make things interesting, I'd do it as a minimal heart cursed ring run. For those who don't know, there's an item in the game called the Cursed Ring, which halves your sword damage and doubles the damage you take. Essentially, it's hero mode in item form, before hero mode even existed. Combining that with a minimal hearts run seems like it could be a pretty fun challenge. Again though, it's been a long time since I've played that game, so it would take me a while to get my bearings. So feel free to comment as to which of those 4 potential series you most want to see next. I'll say me personally, I'm kind of leaning a bit towards Colosseum, but I understand if people would be put off by the whole post-commentary thing. With that out of the way though, I thought I'd take this time to talk about a few more things regarding the future of this channel, future projects that aren't as immediate. The first is, I'd really like to do another blind run soon. Why that's not necessarily an immediate concern though is that even if I did record a blind run soon, I wouldn't be posting it for a little while because I like the format that I did with Spirit of Justice. Record the entire game before posting it. That is the only surefire way to avoid spoilers, I find, and it did work for me quite well in that game. Spirit of Justice was honestly one of the most fun projects that I've ever done on this channel. I know it was pretty different to the kind of stuff that I usually do, but I just had such a blast recording that game. And it's such a shame that there are no more Phoenix Wright games that I haven't played yet, really. Daegyuken Saiban 2 released recently. Unfortunately, it's likely to remain Japan only, and I've already spoiled myself on it for that reason. And I'm now even more annoyed that it's likely to be Japan only, because it's amazing! And as I said at the end of that playthrough, I'm not a big fan of the Danganronpa series, and even if I was, I've already spoiled myself on all of those games, including V3, so that's also out. There are a few blind projects that I am considering. The problem here is I don't want to say what they are, because the moment that I reveal what game they are, I risk getting spoiled. So I'd rather keep it completely under wraps until I decide on one. But I am thinking that I would like to try recording another one soon. And I do have several candidates in mind, but as I said, I'm not going to be saying what they are. Here's another thing, the future of game series that I'm already starting to cover on this channel, and that I definitely will be doing playthroughs of future games of. I already talked about what would likely be the next Fire Emblem game I do in the ending of Sacred Stones, so let's talk Persona now. Of course, I am going to be doing The Answer, but after that, my next planned project with the Persona series is going to be Persona Q. I actually really enjoy this game. I know I've seen a lot of hate on the game. Like, I've seen a lot of people who really hate that game, but for me, it was actually one of my favorite games I've ever played on the 3DS. I probably enjoyed it more than Fire Emblem Awakening and Pokémon X and Y. Its only real flaw to me was how badly they butchered a couple of the characters. But at least that gives me more things to rant and laugh about. After Q, the next planned thing is Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Yes, really. I do plan on doing that game at some point. In fact, you could say the main reason I even did Persona 3 to begin with was as kind of a stepping stone towards getting to Tokyo Mirage Sessions. And actually, Tokyo Mirage Sessions fits into my silly headcanon Sue/Stu storyline that's been going on. Don't worry though, I know a lot of people are tired of that. Tokyo Mirage Sessions is planned to be the absolute grand finale of the Sue saga. Everything that began with New Mystery of the Emblem will finally end in my playthrough of that game. The actual reason why I even made the Persona 3 protagonist Gary Sue to begin with was so that I could find an excuse to kind of merge the two worlds in my headcanon of Tokyo Mirage Sessions. As for the game itself, it is another one that gets a lot of controversy. I fully agree that it is a crossover in name only. If you changed all the Fire Emblem character names and all the Shin Megami Tensei spell names, you would get a game that is totally unrelated to either series. And I feel like it would have been more successful if it was that from the very beginning. However, I still think it's a very good game. The story is very cliched and nothing special. The majority of the characters are walking stereotypes. I think really the only good one is Kiria. But it is still mechanically a very, very solid RPG, and that's partly why I want to play it. I also feel like very few people are going to be putting as much effort into a playthrough of the game as I would. I want to really research all the side quests, all the equipment. I want to do full bios. I want to do a complete 100% run if at all possible. And that might take a while to plan because there's not much information about the concrete gameplay stuff in this game. With Persona 3, I had the Shin Megami Tensei wiki, which had a ton of information for everything I could possibly want. The closest I've found for TMS is Serene's Forest's wiki, and even then, that isn't fully complete. There's also the fact that I'll probably need to get a gamepad capture card, and I'm really not sure how you go about getting one of those. So it probably won't be for a while, but yes, I do plan to do that game eventually. And then after that, it'll be Persona 5. The more I played of Persona 5, the more it became apparent to me that I'd actually rather skip straight to it and skip doing a playthrough of 4. I'm really sorry, Persona 4 fans, but I just don't enjoy that game nearly as much as a lot of other people do. I like its characters in isolation better than Persona 3 or 5's characters, but its overall story just doesn't grab me the way 3 and 5's do, and gameplay-wise, 5 blows it out of the water, so I'd much rather just skip straight to 5, because that's a game I'd have a lot more good things to say about. There is also Arena Ultimax. That's a game that I might do at some point. The problem is that in its story mode, there's very little in the way of gameplay. It's mostly a visual novel, occasionally interrupted by very brief, very easy fighting game rounds. And so commentary-wise, there's not much I can discuss with the gameplay, since even if I was doing more of the gameplay, I suck at fighting games, and have no idea what most of the terminology means. But I do like the Persona 3 storyline of Ultimax, and feel like it's a perfect conclusion to the character arcs set up in both 3, 4, and Q, so I do feel like my coverage of the series wouldn't be complete without doing it at some point. I'm just not sure how to do it, whether I just upload the cutscenes or not. We'll see. Then there's the fact that Q2 and those 2 dancing spin-offs have just been announced. Now, I probably don't intend to do the dancing spin-offs, but Q2 is a game that I might like to do someday, considering how much I enjoyed the first Q. I just hope they would fix a few of the issues that the first Persona Q had, like magic being really underpowered compared to physical attacks in the late game, and characters being horribly flanderized. While we're here, I'd like to share one random thought that I had for a possible future series. It's very strange though, and not like anything that I've done before. So, there's this Fire Emblem manga called Hasha no Tsurugi, or Champion Sword. It's mostly based on FE6 or Sword of Seals, but it actually has quite a lot of original content. And said original content is the most infamous thing about it, because its main character isn't very well liked. A lot of people consider them a Gary Stu. In fact, in a lot of ways, it kind of feels like, what would FE6's plot be like if it had an avatar? I see bits and pieces of this manga talked about online, usually in a negative light, but I actually read through the entire scanlation myself back, quite a long time ago actually, probably almost a decade now. And while there is a lot to make fun of, there's also a lot about it that I kind of enjoy, despite FE6 being my least favourite game in the series. And I haven't seen much in the way of YouTube videos that talk about this manga, so I had an idea for a possible series. I could just show brief summaries of each volume of the manga. It'd take me a while to condense everything down to the point where it'd make sense but not be ridiculously long, because, yeah, looking back on all of the files, this manga is a lot longer than I remember it being. But I could just go through it, giving occasional snarky commentary or things like that. Basically treating it the same way I do a normal Fire Emblem playthrough, just with a manga. I don't know if anyone's actually interested in it, but it could be something kind of fun, I guess. Tell me what you guys think. Anyway, that's pretty much all for this updates video, and I'll see you for more of Sacred Stones next time.